Get some live sports. Finally, UFC comes back and in full force. 3 events in 1 week.
Yeah.
Absolutely unreal. A main event, 249 UFC pay-per-view, and then a couple of fight nights that were pretty good. And that, I mean, just how stacked that UFC 249 roster was.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that they were having that, and then 2 more in
Yeah.
the week. It was.
It's like it's on the break almost is going to help MMA because
Mm-hmm,
it allows them to stack these cards coming up here because they never
mm-hmm.
really have an off season per se.
Yeah.
So you tend to be filling up, just kind of filling out cards, especially the fight nights. Like you see some fight nights come out that are pretty weak. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of like, I mean, here it's been what, 2 months? No, a month and a half without UFC.
Yeah.
So already there was a buildup of fighters they were ready to put on stacked cards. So
Mm-hmm.
if there's any more extended break here, like once things go back to normal, there's going to be some awesome cards. Now, we talked about 249. We kind of recapped it on last week's episode,
Mm-hmm.
but the Wednesday and Saturday night fight nights were pretty solid as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like some really good main events,
Yep.
and lots of really it was exciting to see. Like I forgot how much I missed watching the fight nights and seeing some of the guys that maybe making their UFC debut, maybe have left and come back in after a while. Like the
Mm-hmm.
guys, because those guys are really hungry, and they're the ones that put on these like surprise shows. You know, you always know that a main event for the most part is going to be good. But the
Yep.
nice thing about the fight nights is like you go in with low expectations, and most of the time those expectations end up being exceeded, and you have a great time. Like people
No,
were
for
just
sure.
giving up the bodies just to kind of prove themselves out in that stage for the first time.
Yeah. And before we get into some results here, how do you think the UFC as a whole, I mean, they faced a lot of criticism for putting on these events.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think they did in putting on the events, considering, I mean, at the start of the week with Jacare Souza testing positive, we had to talk privately that we thought this thing was going to be just shut down completely.
Yeah, and that's the big story. If like for all the like the big coronavirus story out of this is that Jacare Souza tested positive, and then they had 3 nights of fighting,
Mm-hmm.
where like people were like hypothetically like yes, Souza was isolated from most of the stuff, but he was still around people a little bit. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that we didn't get any residual like oh this person tested positive, this person tested positive, like there was no chain effect. Like when they had a leak and they just plugged the hole right away. And
Yep.
and I didn't think that it would be effective. I thought that Souza was, I mean, he was at the weigh-ins before it was announced that he was positive. Like, I'm pretty sure he fist bumped Dana White. Like, that was kind of scary, right? That was
Yep.
very, like, it was like, ooh, that's strange. Like, and that, like, that's not going to be good. But then nobody got sick. Nobody else got sick. That's the big testament to how safe this all, like they all set it up. Because if there was one person, one person gets sick and then nobody else gets sick, that means they have a good system in place for testing people and then handling it once they test positive.
Well,
So
yeah, that's
like,
what they said. They said this proves our system works, and a lot of people said, "Well, like, yeah, you caught it, but like it's too late." But I mean, they were right.
yeah.
As of right now, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
things can still change after this. But I mean, 3 events down, and it was flying smooth, especially the Wednesday and the second Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
No tested positive, right? They're really, and there stopped being as many questions. It just kind of was understood that they're gonna roll through it smoothly, and they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's a big feather in Dana White's cap right there that he pulled this off. All the haters really get silenced. I'm sure a lot of people were, because there's people that just my theory is they just hate life and everything fun. And they were all just lipping Dana White and lipping the UFC and saying this is unsafe and like they shouldn't be doing this. You got to wait, like all that. Yeah. And they had all of a sudden they like those people are almost cheering for things to go bad. Like, those cynical people, right? And the second Souza tested positive, they were probably chomping at the bit saying like, yes, like we got him. Like they messed up. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden everybody gets like, you have no leg to stand on if that's your argument now, because they plugged the leak. You're like, you can't confirm that nobody coming in who's been out in the world is going to not test positive. But once they're in your zone,
Yeah.
then you're responsible for it, right? And Souza was in the zone. He tested positive. They got him out of the zone. Everybody else is fine. So that's like a huge win for the UFC.
And as immensely popular as the UFC is becoming and MMA as a sport, it's still pretty niche where
Yes.
they don't like their fan base is not massive compared to an NBA or an NHL or a football, baseball type thing. So it's like if you can be casual fans of those, there's not very many casual MMA fans. Like you're either all in or you think it's dumb.
Yeah.
And so if you're somebody who thinks it's dumb, like you just visually see these people are risking coronavirus to go punch each other in the face, which it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
But it gets a bad rap just from that. And I think you got to look at this week as a success. I mean, if you're the UFC, you put on 3 events, you probably made a shit ton of money capitalizing on this. Your fighters got paid, you got paid, and nobody's hurt.
Yeah. So it's a huge boom and great numbers for the three nights of fighting. They got huge numbers. Like, I mean, you're the only sports in town. You're gonna, it's an instant success. And it's amazing. Like you talked about just like MMA and public opinion on MMA, and it's kind of positioned as a fringe sport. It's interesting. Like, working at a grocery store, like I'm talking to customers all the time, like lots of them, they're waiting. You're holding up the line and someone's standing there kind of in the cold. Let's try to talk to them just to like pass the time. Right. And a lot, like, of course, the conversation, if you're like hanging out with somebody, goes to sports a lot of the times, right? Because it's the ultimate conversation starter, because everybody loves sports. And people
100%.
just saying like, when do you think MLB is going to come back? Do you think NBA? Yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, and I'd be like, well, if you like MMA, UFC's on, like, because during that week, and a lot of people were just like, what's that? Like UFC? Like, or it's like, and then like, how does it work? And it's crazy. Like people like, how does it work? Like, how long is the fight? How like, so you just go on and watch one fight, and it's like, no, dude, you have like 6 hours of just nonstop. Like it's crazy the amount of people. So hopefully this is opportunity. If you're not a huge combat sports person, it's like, well, you dying for some sports. It was so nice. And I mean, we were in our Zoom call with the boys watching this. And it's almost like it's like your quarantine experience, right? You're in a Zoom call, you're watching together, you're all kind of talking about it. It's so close to being chilling with the boys, having some brews, and watching sports. It's so close to that. And right now it's been so long that I couldn't really tell the difference, to be honest. And that was,
and it's
so
like
nice.
People need the escape right now, and sports is their escape. So the fact that on in 2-3 nights this week, you're able to set aside 4 or 5 hours to just forget that we're living in an actual pandemic and just watch something enjoyable and have a good time. Perfect.
Yeah, and how nice did it feel to have plans on a Saturday night?
Yeah.
Something because I was anticipating this for like weeks, right? Like once it was announced that this is happening, it was like, man, I was thinking like all this stuff, like, oh, this is going to be, and I mean, that 249 kept getting pushed back, right? So like every time they had a date, it would be like, that's the night. That's like my night. It's almost like going out, you're planning, you're thinking about it like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you're just like thinking about it at work all day long. And then you finally get to it and you're just like sit back with a brew and you're like, that's just nice.
It was perfect. I think it's really what people needed. And you want to get into some of the results of the Wednesday and Saturday fights?
Yeah, let's do it.
So first off, we'll talk about the Wednesday card. So we had the main event. We had Glover Teixeira beating Anthony Smith in controversial fashion for how long the fight continued on. There was a lot of call out over, and Jason Herzog, the referee for the fight, came out afterwards and apologized for it. I mean, we watched this. Did you think, Glover Teixeira obviously battered Anthony Smith. Did you think that the fight went on too long without a stoppage?
It's really hard to say in light of the Dominic Cruz Henry Cejudo thing with Keith Peterson. Like, I think that's in the back of your mind, because Keith Peterson.
That was my other question. I was going to say, do you think it went this long because of the controversial decision?
I 100% think it did, because Keith Peterson, drunk or not, that's still very much alleged hearsay, right? So we're not even going to go there.
Yeah.
Except to say, okay, maybe there's a shadow of a doubt that he was like incapacitated during this fight. But anyways, let's say he wasn't.
Well, this
At
was
the end of
this
the day,
fight. Okay, sorry.
no,
Are
no,
you
no,
talking
no.
about this? Okay,
I'm talking
okay,
about the Dominic Cruz. So at the end of the day, that fight was called way too early. He was on the way up, and
With 2
that
seconds left in the round,
with
standing
2 seconds
up,
left in the round. So that became like Keith Peterson got schmucked on social media, drunk or not, he got schmucked, and that's what you're thinking. Like, and I'm sure there was something like Dominic Cruz is a very respectable person in the UFC. I'm sure there was somebody like the powers that be went to Keith Peterson and said, like, you got to explain some shit, right? Like, I'm sure, and the rest of the judges
blow on this test too.
Yeah, the rest of the judges they realize that, they know, because it's a circle, right? They're like, these are the same guys in all the fight commissions. They know each other. They know what's going on, so they know something is happening between either the commission and Keith Peterson or the UFC and Keith Peterson.
Yeah.
So that's on your mind as you're calling this fight. It's the main event. Everybody, all the eyes are on you. You know, like, there's no other sports on. So if anybody is going to talk about anything, like anything that happens is going to be accelerated because all the sports media, that's what they're going to talk about, right? So you have all those factors playing, and you also have a guy in Anthony Smith who is a guy with no quit that you like. I don't think Anthony Smith at any point was like, it's interesting because he said to his corner, he said to them, like, my teeth are falling out.
Yeah,
so,
that's
like,
what I was going to say. I was going to say there is, like, good for Anthony Smith for showing no quit. I never expected him to, and no MMA fighter that gets to this level is going to quit.
Yeah.
But that is when it's the referee's job or your corner's job to come in and protect you. That is their job.
Yeah.
And to me, there was 3 situations in this. The first one was when in the middle of the round, Anthony Smith is on the ground just taking shot after shot, like some half-ass defending it.
Yeah.
And he literally picked up a tooth off the canvas and handed it to the referee. If you were doing that mid-fight, like kind of half-ass giving it to him, what are we doing here? And you say, okay, I mean, you can say like, well, he was coherent doing that. Keep doing it. After that round, he goes back to his corner and he says to them, my teeth are falling out, and he's not answering anything that they're saying strategy-wise. Mm-hmm. Right there, you know your fighters, if this goes to the scorecard, because they're going in the 5th round, he's lost. Mm-hmm. Do you seriously think he has a chance in hell going out there putting Texeria out? No, the fight's lost. Take him out. Fight another day. And then before that round, so there's 2 times where it couldn't stop. And before that round, Jason Herzog walks up to Anthony Smith and he's asking him if he's okay. And Anthony Smith just looks away and does not respond. Good for Anthony Smith showing the heart to stay into it. But like Chael Sonnen said after the fight, not responding is a response. That was his pride saying, take me out. And they let him go back in there, just take more shots, take more damage to his body, which is going to, like, years from, like a fight like that, years from now, you're still feeling.
Yeah. You know, and it was so clear that I didn't know, it was so weird seeing where the cornermen's heads were at, because that scene, as you said, like, when they have the camera on him, they're talking strategy, like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to be putting pressure here, yada, yada, yada. And he's just saying, my teeth are falling out. Like, and he's just sitting there unresponsive. Like, you got to know your guy. You got to know. And Smith is a very intelligent guy, very coherent. He does so much media. Like, he's not somebody who's just the quiet, stoic type. He's not just going to, like, usually when you see him in his corner, he's responding, he's responsive. Like, he's got a little bit of like he's got some energy to him. He had no energy. Like, you gotta know, like, you gotta throw in the towel.
And you look at, like, a broken sport like boxing. Now, I love boxing too, but it's a broken sport right now, where you see a corner will throw in the towel for their fighter. Like, that's commonplace. Yeah. And you never see that in MMA. And I think that's something that they could really take over. Because as a fan, to me, the fight is over. Everybody knows the fight's over. If you throw the towel in, I'm not going to be upset. The fighter will be upset, but he'll get over that. And you guys can mend your relationship if that is a true coach for you. Yeah. But you're just saving length for your career.
Yeah.
saving your body.
Well, what do we say? Like, what do MMA fans? How do they react to a doctor stoppage? It's usually there's a little bit of disappointment because you wanted a full fight, but at the same time, you see the guy like we were at this card, the Ortega one, Holloway versus Ortega. Like we were up in the 500s watching that, and all of a sudden the doctor comes out and stops it. We're like, what the heck? And then they show the camera on the big screen. You see like there's no eye, there's no left, like it's just one big swollen thing. Right? Like, and you're just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's fair. Good on Ortega for taking a beating. That was smart. He fights another day. Holloway would have won that fight, and we move on. Like, if we, like,
and the
based
thing
on
is,
that,
too, those are visual things that we're seeing. So, and those are ones where the fighter's still coherent.
yeah.
So why are we more likely to be like, oh, you have a massive cut, or like you're swollen, so we're gonna cancel it, versus like you can't form a sentence right now.
Yeah.
But because you visually don't look okay, you're fine.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, especially with all the concerns, like with the CTE stuff, which I mean is a huge factor, and in all the sports where you're making contact now, that's like we're getting more and more information about how deadly that can be every day. So to say, okay, like we're going to have doctor stoppage not only when your face looks messed up, well, when your mind seems to be messed up, maybe that's a smart avenue to go down.
Yeah.
Like, but
so,
it's not a good watch. It becomes a painful, like awkward, like you just feel uncomfortable watching a guy taking a beating 3 rounds in a row. Like,
for the people that have never watched MMA before and go, there's no sports on, let me tune into this. They go, why the hell do you just watch an assault happen?
Yeah.
Like, what is entertaining about this?
And that's a great point. It's not UFC at its best look. It is not. It's not good MMA. So it's like it's hurting you more than it's helping you to have this guy in there, and it's hurting him a whole lot. Get him out of there. Like it's such a shame. Like it's such a shame, and it like, I wonder how much the Keith Peterson stuff impacted that. Like, but eventually,
I think it did a lot. Yeah.
Eventually, you got to just say, like, even then though, like I could see the Keith Peterson thing, like a rational judge. Okay, I'm gonna give it an extra round, maybe because of what happened. But man, just after, like, to get that thing to the 5th round, like it's just so bad, like so painful.
Yeah, it was bad. And now the co-main event for that, we had Ben Rothwell beat Ovince St. Preux, and Ovince St. Preux's debut at heavyweight. And that was by split decision. A little bit of controversy over that with split decision. Probably Ben Rothwell was the right choice. Honestly, the most exciting part of that fight was having John Jones tweet about how seeing OSP move up to heavyweight, he could see himself moving up. Not to take anything away from those fighters. It's just anytime John Jones starts talking about moving up to heavyweight, that's going to pique everybody's interest.
Yeah. John Jones, interesting if he moves up. Like I was kind of hoping he would move up a little bit earlier to fight Cormier, but that ship has kind of sailed.
I mean, your next best thing is him and Ngannou are going back and forth. I mean, you slap an interim heavyweight title on that one and have those two go at it. I mean, you don't even have to slap the interim title on. You just make that the main event. That thing sells. That's a Jones and Ngannou. That's a top 5 all-time seller.
Especially with the way he went through Rosenstruck last week. Like, whew, that's something. That is something. Like, and who do you think wins that fight? Not to get too derailed, but
I mean, like, we're at a situation here where if it's a long MMA fight, I think it's proven that Jones will outpoint him and win. But if Ngannou connects, it's over. So that's one. It's like, does Ngannou connect within the first 2 minutes? Yes, then he wins. No, then Jones will outlast him and win.
Yeah.
And then you also be like, does Jones, like, how much extra power will he carry up? How much cardio will he maintain if he moves up?
Yeah,
because a lot of those questions.
That cardio will be an interesting thing because, John Jones is not going to win from a first couple rounds, like knockout in the first couple rounds. That's Ngannou's game. But John Jones has the endurance. How will it carry up as he goes up in weight? But the thing is also, John Jones, like, his bread and butter is 5-round fights.
Mhm.
You know, oh, I guess
Well,
it
and
was.
it's also too is like how much would he actually weigh in that? Because you're
Mhm.
looking at, I mean, he cuts to 205, so his walk around, I'm gonna guess, pure guess, is gonna be 225, I would say.
Mhm.
So I mean, if you're going against Ngannou, does he bulk or does he just say I'm gonna stay at my walk around weight? So I mean, 220, 225 is pretty light for heavyweight, but you
Yeah.
see it. So do you just like do you stay at that or do you
Well,
actively bulk up and try and
how
hit
much does
240 or
Ngannou
something?
weigh going into the octagon?
I want to say Ngannou's like pushing 260, if not
260.
265.
Yeah,
Like
see, that's a huge
he's
weight difference.
yeah, he's up there. So I mean, you almost have to bulk.
Yeah, I think like bulk like 10 pounds, you think?
Yeah.
Like go up
But
because
then
I
it's like you might naturally do that in a training camp where you're not focused on cutting weight.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Just let it happen naturally. See how it shakes out.
Mhm.
Because yeah, definitely, I think the strategy for Jones is just get points, right? Get points, get body hits, head hits, leg kicks. You know,
Yeah.
rack not nothing to knock him out. Just rack
But
up
the
points.
new John Jones, at least this is. Old
Yeah,
John Jones was putting people out.
yeah, but that's not the John Jones we've seen in the last little while, and
Yeah.
that's I don't think that's a viable strategy because if you go up against Ngannou and you go
Mhm.
for a knockout, you're just gonna open yourself up for the big home run, like on the other side. You know what I mean?
And Ngannou's proven he doesn't have to hit you clean to put you out.
Yeah, like so I think like you got to be real reserved. You have to be all it has to be all about survival because there's if it goes to decision, John Jones wins,
Yeah,
like that. So you just got to survive,
I
um,
agree.
and like but that would be unreal. That'd be a great and it's funny like it's almost like the conversation then becomes okay, John Jones, did you really just go up a weight class to fight Francis Ngannou just to skirt Derek Reyes or Dominic
Dom-
Reyes?
Yeah, man. I think if he's facing Ngannou, he's not scared of Reyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's fair.
I think that'd be fair to say there. And then the only other notable fight I had from Wednesday night, not to say some of the other ones weren't notable, but we had Drew Dober beating Alexander Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he put on a show, and he could be a mover at lightweight there. So, and
Mm-hmm.
Alexander Hernandez, for somebody who was kind of on a pretty high upstream there, had
Mm-hmm.
a lot of talk coming from him, like he was going for the title right away. To then be stopped by Cowboy, come back, have a pretty lackluster win over Francisco Trinaldo, and then here to be stopped by Dober. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
his career's not like kind of floundering a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dober called out Paul Felder, didn't he?
Well, he said he called out. He kind of clarified that he called out people like Paul Felder, where
Oh,
he pretty
okay.
much he said that he's not calling out specific people. He just wants to face people like pretty much he said he wants to fight the best in the division,
Yeah.
which is kind of fair enough, but kind of also it's the fight game. You got to call out specific people if you want to
Yeah.
fight specific people.
Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. That's the rule for the call outs, right? Not always, but like if you want to make something
Yeah,
happen,
worst case
make
is
something.
you don't get the fight.
And
Like
then
that's the
you,
worst case.
yeah, exactly. So it's like just like calling out just, oh, general, I would like anybody, ranked 7 and up, just like, go get me someone like that. Like you're not going to get anything. You might as well go out and call out like a cowboy or something like that. You might as well.
Yeah, especially in the lightweight division where everybody calls out McGregor. Like
Yeah.
you like honestly be specific about anybody other than McGregor and you might get it.
Yeah, you never know, and especially I mean that lightweight division is so crowded at the top, and
It's
even
ridiculous.
more so now that Gaethje is now like number one contender.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a wild division. You got full of wild people that are
Mm-hmm.
great at the marketing side. Lightweight
Mm-hmm.
is probably the best at in terms of selling fights. Besides fighting the fights, selling the fights, they got the best, most interesting names. You got Cowboy, you got Tony, you got Connor, Khabib, who has his a reserve but a style that still sells fights. Like it's not in your face, but it's still he gets you excited.
Yeah.
In terms of getting people, like he has that reserved, like kind of he's just sitting back, like doesn't care. He'll just whatever you say, he just bounces right off him. That's
Yeah.
fun to watch in the press conferences, all that. you gotta, to compete with those guys, you gotta get good at that side. If you want to fight with those guys, you need to be good on that side of the fight game and in the talking. And part of the talking is calling out specific people and getting beefs with specific people. And Dober just going like, and I liked it. I liked it when he called out Paul Felder. Like, it's not going to happen, but it's something that, like, and he's sitting right there. Like, he's sitting right there commentating. It's great call out. But then to back it up and say, well, actually, like, I was just calling out like anybody, you know, like whatever. I don't know about that.
And I think that was more him just, you know, being a nice guy more than anything. But something here too is, like, would you agree with me when I say that between lightweight and welterweight, and there's a good argument for this here, lightweight and welterweight pound for pound are the best divisions in the UFC right now. And it's a real toss up to say which one's better. I would say probably lightweight would be a bit better pound for pound than welterweight, but do you agree with me there?
I agree with that. 100%. And I think it's like, that's the range, like, where it's, you have power, but you also have agility. It's a good balance. And also the nice thing is, like, it's a middle, like, it's kind of the middle ground. So it's easy for the guys that are a little bit below it to move up, and it's easy for the guys who are a little bit over to go down. So it kind of is like the puddle where everything kind of collects.
And exactly why they pull back an argument that me and you have had forever, and I think I've swayed you, is the 165 division needs to happen.
Well, okay, but the thing with the 165 division is, it's like you go up, it's 10 pounds and then 5 pounds.
No. You'd have 155, 165, 175, 185.
So you change, like, you mix up everything.
You move up welterweight.
Yeah.
And you move and you create a 165. And then you leave 55 the way it is.
Yeah.
And then from 40, because I mean, you go 25, 35, 45, 55, and then you skip 15 to 70, and then you skip 15 again to 185. And you could say between 155 and 185, that's where the majority of people are going to be in that range. So give more options in, like, the cut. Like, if there's so many fighters in that middle where they're too small for welterweight, too big for lightweight. So they're either, like, destroying their body to get down to 55, or they're just being completely oversized at 70. Like a Rafael dos Anjos. Like, you tell me that, like, that guy won championship at 55, just couldn't make it anymore. And he's doing good at 70, but he's kind of struggled a little bit. You tell me at 65 he's not going to be an absolute killer when he's actually fighting people that are the same size as him consistently, or he's not sacrificing so much to get down. You know what I mean? Conor McGregor's best division would be 65. Khabib's best would be 65. You know what I mean?
So then,
then you have some welterweights that would cut a little bit extra, move down, or you'd have welterweights move up to 75, get a little bit more, be a little bit healthier into the fight.
That's fair. Well, I mean, like, my fear, and this is like, you're slowly wearing me down on this debate, and I think I've already conceded to you, but then every once in a while I'll just think of it and I'll be like, no, Brad's stupid. This is why. And like, I just, like, don't you think you cheapen the 155 a little bit, or the 175?
No,
because
I don't think it cheapens 55 at all. I think
if everybody's going to move to, everyone's going to move to the 165. Like, all these, if you're saying Conor, Khabib, like Ferguson probably goes, like, you just gut the 155 division then.
Okay, but now if you're like Max Holloway, you're like, okay, now I can move up to 55 because the people aren't so much bigger than me there. It's a little bit more, like, I feel more comfortable moving up because I'm not completely outsized there. Do you know what I mean?
And then somebody goes back down to 155 and mucks Max Holloway.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's going to be some growing issues with it. I think between the amount of people that would move up from 55 and would move down from 70, do you know what I mean? But you're also looking at a situation too, like the 75-pound division, like, you'd have some middleweights move down.
Yeah.
You'd have some middleweights move down that just couldn't get that extra 5 pounds.
Okay, so you're starting to sell me. Now, this is not, like, I'm not trying to say this is just a hypothetical about, let's say you make this division, what do you do, right? You're Dana White, you make this new division. Now, do you keep the roster at the number, like, you start getting people into the roster, getting people out of the roster as it is? Or do you say, okay, now we have a quota, like, we need 20 more guys that are going to fit into kind of these new divisions?
I mean, It's tough. I mean, because like you probably need more fighters, but UFC like the amount of cards they put on regularly
Mm-hmm.
outside of coronavirus, like you need those fighters anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
to be able to stick more ranked fighters, one more title shot throughout the year, it doesn't hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
It sure shit does not hurt you. Like the amount of
Yeah,
events
that's
that
fair.
they put on, they could use it,
Yeah,
especially in a
that's
premier
fair.
division.
That's fair. Yeah.
So we are way off track from the
We are
results
so
too.
far off the beaten trail, which is kind of good because
Yeah.
during these Corona times, you need all the sport. You got the sports things to talk you can get. We see a like place we go. Anyways, let's get back on track. Where are we?
So we're moving on to Saturday night here. Our guy Eric Anders was beat by Christoph Jocko. Sadly, our guy Anders will be back strong.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, he's gonna be back strong. He had won 2 in a row before this, so
Mhm.
we got faith. So we got to sadly mention that. Then we had Dan Ige beating Barbosa in Barbosa's featherweight debut, which is wild. The fact that he made featherweight and actually looked good at it.
Yeah, he
I mean,
did.
it was a split decision too. I
Mhm.
heard that Barbosa might appeal it, which, come on, like,
Yeah,
don't
just
do that. Like
that's not
Ige,
just a waste of
and
time.
I had Ige win in 29-28 too. I don't think
Same.
it was that. I don't think it was that wild.
But yeah, this was
Ige's going to be a problem in the featherweight division too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And that was a fun fight. High energy. Like the featherweights are just great for that. Like keeping up the energy throughout the fight. Lots of hits exchanged. Yeah, Barboza looked really good for making that weight cut. Good on him. And split decision. Very exciting fight. Ige, though I had him to win. I had him to win.
We had Gadella over Hill and wasn't a split decision, but honestly probably more controversial because I thought Hill kind of didn't run away with it, but I thought she easily won this fight. And I had Gadella. I thought she was going to win going into this. So, but I think Hill won it. But I mean, we had Gadella win here. So shocking that this was the co-main. I thought there was Eric Anders Jocko would have been a hell of a lot better co-main. Ige Barbosa would have been fit better as the co-main. It was kind of weird they had this as a co-main.
Yeah, I was just like kind of like, what is this? Like, this is actually the co-main. Like, we already on the co-main. Like here, I was not ready for it, and yeah, it was okay.
Like no offense to them.
No offense to them, but like
they're not like Angela Hill fights like 6 times a year, and Gadella is not really a money fighter. So, but
yeah,
good fight.
Yeah.
And then we had Overeem beating Walt Harris. And I mean, I think the whole world here was cheering for Walt Harris. You almost had him in the first round. And you know what? It's sad, but it's fight business. I thought Overeem did a really good job being, it sounds stupid, but he did a really good job being like respectful. And everything about that, like after the fight and everything. He understood the significance of the fight and read the room.
Yeah, no, he was like, and I'm not a big fan of Overeem as it is, but I gotta say, class act with the way he handled wrapping up that fight, going in, backing off when the ref called, and then going back in and just giving him a big kind of bear hug. And I don't know what he said to him, but
one of the things I think he said that we can train together in the future. Yeah,
so relationship formed there. These two guys. It's so tragic, the story, so kind of inspirational the way he got back in that ring and was or that octagon and was just ready to pull off a win in front of everybody. But man, Overeem, he was the guy, and he almost went down in that first round. I really thought he was done in that first round. Now, and how amazing would that have been? Like the story after that, just mucking him in the first round, but then Overeem just came back and Harris just didn't have it for the rest of the fight, unfortunately.
Exactly. And I mean, Harris looked like he gassed out quick, and all like the amount of things that have went on, like you can't blame him. And I thought Paul Felder did a really good job after the fight when he said, when you didn't ask him a specific question, he just said, I want to I want to open up, say whatever you want to say. I thought that was the best way to do that, especially after he lost Do you know what I mean? To not come straight forward with a question, because I was scared they were going to ask an awkward question.
Yeah.
It just shows how much of a true professional Paul Felder is.
Yeah.
Walt Harris's response was like very well said there, like heartbreaking to see. And I mean, I hope to see him in the octagon soon.
Yeah, for sure. Because we're not done with Walt Harris, that's for sure. And yeah, Paul Felder, class act. Really, he's proven himself every day as a competent media guy. And I think it really helps that he knows, like, because MMA, losing an MMA fight is different than any different other loss in sports, right? So you have a guy in Paul Felder who's been there. He's lost his fair share of fights. And so
including one very recently,
one very recently, I mean, his last fight, right? And you know what it's like, what emotions are going through your mind. And then you just kind of, as a human being, can understand, well, add to just the loss, everything going on in his life. And that was just a very good way to get, because you had to give him the mic. You had to. Like, I knew going into the fight, if he lost, they're still going to give him the mic. He has to have the last word. And that's the way it should be. It's just, like, I was curious how they were going to handle that. Because usually the temptation is you lead with a question, right? Like, that's what you do, you know, like, you're a journalist, right? So very good job figuring out